Hey, what's up? A couple days late for this one. I know, but I think it may work even better now because the Halloween remake just came out, and I'm talking about the second half of my top 10 scary movie remakes that I want to see. So here we go. Number 5 is Wishmaster. This one came out in the early 90s, and there have been 4 of them as far as I remember. And it's about a djinn, which is a genie, that gets freed. It latches onto a host and starts granting wishes, but the wish costs you your soul, and then the genie uses those wishes to kill you. Kind of interesting. It's got a cool concept, and I think it could work now as well, especially with this idea of wanting fame. This fame seekers would be willing to sell their soul for something like this, and I think you could do that sort of story, or you can just have a regular, oh, my life sucks and I will give anything to make it better kind of story. And I think that could work. And I do enjoy those types of stories where you get what you want, but there's always a price. Those are cool. And it also has a lot of practical effects with the monster effect makeup. The creature effects are kind of cool. And I think if you were to remake it, you should probably use the makeup and prosthetics instead of CG, especially if you're doing like direct to DVD or Blu-ray or on demand or whatever they're going to do with it. I think it would be best to stick with the makeup and that sort of stuff because the CG probably be more expensive than just using the prosthetics. So number 4 is Disturbing Behavior. Now this one I think made my top 10 underrated scary movies, I think a couple years ago, and I do believe it. I think it deserves a remake because the concept is kind of interesting with a family moving to a new town and the high school kids, son and daughter, go to this new school, but they notice something's off about the student body. Some of them are really like how people think 50s kids were, how they're presented in 50s television. And so they discover what's wrong with the city, like what's going on here and why these kids are the way they are. And I think that sort of thing could be done now. You don't really need to add anything with social media or anything like that. But you could if you wanted to. But I think the story itself, lends itself to being retold. And this is a story I think should be retold. Number 3 is Demon Knight. Now, this one, another 90s movie. This one is a Tales from the Crypt movie. For those of you who don't know what Tales of the Crypt is, it was a show in the 90s that was on HBO that told scary stories that used a lot of, I guess, you want to call it blood and guts, but a lot of shock value to its stories. And some of them were kind of scary, some of them were kind of just messed up. But there's some pretty good episodes in it. And also, this was the first movie that came out with the headline Tales of the Crypt presents Demon Knight. And it's about a demon knight that goes and tries to protect one of 7 keys from an assortment of demons. And he holds up in this building, and the demons surround it, and they gotta survive. It's a classic story of trying to survive the night, basically. But I think the story could be done well now, especially since back then they did a little bit of the CG stuff with like the effects with when the monsters die, and I think that could be improved upon, as well as still using like kind of the monster effects where you have the makeup, kind of like The Walking Dead uses with the zombies. I think you could do that same sort of thing with the demons, the underling demons in this one, but keeping the main demon like more human-like. Not to mention in the movie, the demon would convince some of the people in the building to join him by promising them, stuff in return, and it would turn them into a demon, or one of his underlings, as you say. And the effects on it are pretty dated, I guess, but kind of cool. And so I would like to see that done now with a mix of practical and CG, because when they're done together, they can look really cool. And so I think the movie should be done again with the same sort of like, you know, survive the night kind of tale, and I would like to see that. That's for sure. Number 2 is Final Destination. Let it never be said that I'm not willing to put my favorite movies onto the reboot wheel or the remake wheel, whatever you want to call it. And yes, this is my favorite scary movie, and I would like to see it redone. I know I'm asking for disappointment, but hear me out. The idea of somebody having a premonition and then that premonition coming true, and since they avoided that situation, what they said happened was going to happen did happen, and now death is basically coming back for them and saying, no, you were supposed to die there and I'm coming for you now, is kind of cool. I liked it, and it had a lot of suspense, a lot of good characters, and I'd like to see that done again. You like I said, other parts of this list, you don't need technology to really advance the story or make it different. You could kind of retell it, but also if you want to use social media, maybe you have one of the people who survive gets on and they're like scared that death is going to come after them, or that they're now just going to basically document their entire life before death gets them for good. And I would like to see that sort of thing done. There's a lot of stuff you can do with how people will react if they found out that they were supposed to die at a certain point. And now the other people that were there with them are dying, and it's going to come for them at some point. So yeah, I would really like to see that. And Final Destination is my favorite scary movie. I might watch it again this year for Halloween. But the number 1 movie I want to see a remake or a reboot of is Candyman. This was number 1 in my underrated scary movies list, and it's number 1 again. The idea of a vengeful spirit, you know, is could be cool with this sort of story. When it was in the original, it was during Reconstruction, where he was killed by a former slave owner after he fell for that man's daughter. After he was commissioned to paint her picture, basically, but then he fell for her. They fell for each other. They had an affair, and you know how it was back then, and kind of is now. And so they killed him in a very brutal and barbaric way. And now he's basically become a boogeyman in a sense, kind of like Bloody Mary is in some other cultures. So I would like to see this redone. And you can even change the time period where this happened. You don't have to put in Reconstruction. You could put in the Civil Rights era. Maybe this person was trying to get people to vote, or he was just in the South, maybe registering people. He fell for another white woman, and then the Klan, with the backing of the cops, just massacred this kid, or this man, to make him a man. They massacred this man, and then now he basically is coming back for revenge decades later, or he just remained a vengeful spirit for all this time. And if you want to go with the route of where Candyman 2 and 3 went, you could have it where he's trying to basically take his offspring. I don't want to give too much away. He's trying to do something with his offspring to try and maybe get himself either back into our world or bring him over to his world. I'm not going to say which one it is. So I would like to see that. I mean, Tony Todd did a phenomenal job as Candyman with that booming voice of his. And I think if you're going to do it, you should get somebody with that sort of voice that could really do the job well. I'll say maybe Idris Elba. He has a really good voice, so I could see maybe him doing something like that. And this movie, if done well, I think would be a nice little reintroduction of this story to people who basically don't know it, because it's a folktale that's kind of been dying out, especially with the internet not being one of those places where stories like this would be told. Would you like text it or Facebook it or tweet it or whatever? Probably not, but it could be like one of those weird Facebook posts that gets mysteriously shipped around to people. You can do something with that, and then maybe that's how his legend gets reestablished in our time. So, just a quick thought on that. But I liked Candyman a lot, just like I liked Final Destination, and I would like to see it get a reboot or a remake in order to reintroduce the stories. Just like a lot of these, I think the stories should be reintroduced. So what do you think? What's a scary movie remake or reboot you want to see? Let me know in the comments. And I have another top 10 coming. Hopefully I can do it next week before Halloween and before another day that comes right around that time as well. So till then, take care. Bye.